Welcome back. When you design prompts, it's not just about what you say, it's also about who says what. That's where roles come in. We're going to talk about system, user, and assistant roles, and how we can use roles to our advantage when prompting. Let's get back into the platform and start using this like real AI PMs. Let's talk a bit about prompting roles, starting with what we saw in last video about the system role. So the system role, what it does essentially is define the identity and rules of the prompt. It sets the model's behavior, it sets who it is, what tone it should use, and what constraints it must follow. So as an example, let's go here and let's write a system prompt. Put a left arrow, and we're gonna write system, and then we put a right arrow. And that's actually gonna make the tags automatically for us. So then we're gonna write a basic system prompt in here. And we're gonna write a customer support agent, for example. So writing your customer support agent, we've given it a role. Now let's specify how we want the output. So now we've said always respond in JSON. This is how we want the output. We're setting constraints for the output. If you don't know what JSON is basically a structured output format that is easier for computers to work with. And next, we're gonna add a constraint so that it reduces hallucination. We're gonna say, so now we made a system message. And actually, this is already done by default in the system. So if we leave these tags out, we're actually gonna already have the system message automatically created. But as good practice, you can include them. Now we're gonna continue on to one of the other fundamental roles, which is the user role. The user role is marked the same way. We're gonna use XML tags and we're gonna write user. The user role is, you can think of it as the actual request. This is where the user input goes. It's a thing that the model has to act on. This is oftentimes we're actually gonna have variable information. Let's write a user message. Write a reply to this message. And then we do the same thing we did last time with the variables and we write, there we go. Cool. So now we've created a user message. So within this user message, we have a variable which is message. Okay, and then we have that contextualized by this bit of text right here, which is write a reply to this message, and then the variable for the message. So if you actually go to preview here, we can see how this looks. Let's go preview and then hit system instructions. You'll see that you have you are a customer support agent, always respond in JSON, never guess, ask for missing information. And then we have this part right here, which is the user message. So we have the system instructions and then the user message. And then if we put information here into the preview, you'll see how it appears in the user message section. And think that this is exactly what the LLM is going to see. It's going to kind of see the information organized like this in a way that, if you remember in our last lesson, we didn't quite see that as much. We saw that all the information we had was in the system message. Now, this is fine for a very simple use case. The AI is going to be able to understand what it needs to do. But in more complex prompts, this is going to be more relevant. All right, let's give a sample message. I love that. And you can see how it appears right here. Cool. So if we were to send that, you get a response. And we get that response in JSON, as we specified in the system message. Response, thank you for your positive feedback. We're thrilled to hear that you love the product. If you have any questions or need assistance, feel free to reach out. And then later, the infrastructure that we have around this LLM could take this JSON response and handle it. And so that's kind of nice that we have a JSON response here. All right, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna move on to assistant messages. We don't use this as often as the other message types. So you can think that we have types of roles. We have roles that are kind of like the officially established rules that when we work with AI, that the APIs for the different providers that you have are accustomed to seeing these roles. And so the models are kind of trained with these roles. And then we can actually use roles as a way to organize information. And so that would be by using these XML tags, and we could change the name. The assistant role is kind of an in-between there. The assistant role is often used as one of the general roles, but it's not as immediately useful as the rest. And one of the general uses of the assistant role is that you can simulate the AI having given a response. So for example, what we could do is we could go here and we could write assistant, and now we have an assistant message. And anything that you put here, the AI is going to think that it said itself. It's kind of like you're tricking it into thinking that that is its memory. And so for example, we could go here and we could grab, we're going to actually our runs in the past, you can ignore what I'm doing right now, but I'm just going into the to our past runs, and I'm going to grab this information, copy that, and I'm actually going to paste in here the response that it gave me. Now, in the future, I could change anything I want here that I didn't like. For example, I could add another key here. For example, I could say tone. Now that I've done this, I've basically tricked it into thinking that it said before, it gave me a JSON output and it gave it with these two keys. And so now, hypothetically, when it responds after this, and actually here we would have to go in and we'd have to change the message information for the message information we had prior. So we're going to go here and we're going to grab this and we're going to move our stuff around a little bit. And we're going to add another user message. And now we're simulating continued communication with this. So here we go. And we're going to add our variable back. And now what we've done here is basically we've given it a user message, I love this product, and then we've simulated a response doing the concept we introduced earlier, this few-shotting concept. And now additionally, we have another user response with the variable. So now the information that's going to be sent to the LLM is the system instructions, the user response, and then this assistant message, and then the real user query that's going to go here. We could say, I hate this product. And we should see that it is more biased to produce an output like this. So let's hit run. And you can see that it put tone here and its response. So let's go back to our editor. So here we've played with the three principal types of roles. And what we can see here is that clear role separation reduces hallucinations and it gives the model less room to improvise, which is super important. It also makes behaviors more predictable across runs, just like we saw with the assistant message, where we added a new key and then it responded with that key that it actually hadn't used in its first output. And finally, what is really important is that this makes debugging much easier. If something goes wrong, you know which role to adjust and you have the prompt organized to know where the issues are occurring. And so what I want you guys to take away from this is I want you to take away the idea that cleaning your prompts is going to give you more predictable behavior. And so make sure that you keep your prompts well organized and well rolled, and also with relevant context so that you can have predictable behavior.